Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. I want to make a quick, more than sarcastic video following the first comment on today's video, or yesterday's video, sorry, on my sash remake video. The first comment within 2 hours of the video going live was, you need to sharpen your chisels. Now, anybody who knows me, who's been in this shop, done any work with me in this shop, knows sharpening is something I take incredibly seriously. What you can't see in the video is the end grain in these rails, like this, is incredibly dense. Okay, and I'm trying to scribe a tiny area with a gouge that's the same width as the scribe, so I'm not walloping through. Okay, and when I was doing this work here, I'm using these chisels here. So that's the chisel I use for paring. You can actually see your face in it. Okay. And these are the ones I use for knocking with the chisel because they have a thicker edge. So these chisels have a much thicker edge. This is what's called a gilt edge by Sowerby. These are excellent chisels if you want bench chisels for joinery work. These are Ashar's Mark IIs. Now you can see the difference. If I can get it to focus. Look how much thinner the Ashar's is than the Sowerby. These are fine work chisels. These are not everyday beaters. These are like your old-fashioned ward made chisels or braids. They made them with very fine edges as well. So if you look at the fine edge on that and then look at the fine edge on this braids paring chisel, you'll see, if I can get it to focus again, you'll see that they're very similar. Okay, so there is absolutely no need for me to sharpen my chisels. Every time a chisel comes out of the drawer, it's sharpened. It gets sharpened daily, 3 and 4 times a day sometimes. Okay. Now I use diamond stones and I use a straw, and I use a couple of ceramic stones, and that is the pig sticker chisel that I was beating. Okay, so this has been hollow ground at some point in its life, which actually isn't right for one of these. These should be cambered. But let's have a look and see what this will do. So this is end grain, piece of shitty pine. That's the mortise chisel. That's not been sharpened since I did the video because it wasn't doing enough from its initial sharpening. Okay, so that's a mortise chisel. Okay. That is a heavy beating chisel. It's not a easy to, it's not a paring chisel, and yet it will pare end grain. A bit deep there, but there you go, that's paring end grain. Please explain to me where that needs to be sharper and why that needs to be sharper. It's a blunt force chisel. This is the little gouge I was using, the in-canal gouge. These are a bitch to sharpen, or they're certainly a bitch to reshape and regrind. They're not too bad to sharpen because you're doing them with a round oil stone. But where does that need to be sharper? Just because I'm using it in a slow and steady manner, cutting my scribes, doesn't mean it needs sharpening. And actually, to cut the shape of your scribe, the motion has to be a rocking motion like that. You can't just push them straight through because you have no control of the forward force. You have to use a rocking motion so you can control, so that you can actually cut. So I'm not putting hardly any forward pressure on there at all because I'm rolling the gouge, and that's what's important. That's the motion I'm using. Okay, but when the piece is only that wide, that's the width we're taking out with a scribe, and it's the full width of the gouge. You cannot go at it like a bull at a gate. You know, but what's wrong with that? You know, that's cutting end grain perfectly fine. So we'll look at this big chisel that I was using with the mallet. This will pare end grain. The fact that I choose to use a thinner chisel afterwards is entirely up to me. So what more sharpening do people expect? This is the 10mm that I was using in that video also. That's an incredibly crappy piece of pine, and that's paring really well. So next time you feel like making a comment, understand what sharp really is before you make a comment. You know, when I first started making videos, one of the first comments on the first video I made using a saw, somebody said, "Oh, I have a particular talent for hearing when a saw is blunt. How the hell can you hear that from a film that was filmed on a potato with no microphone in a shed that the sound reverberates around?" You can't. And it's the same as you do not understand just how sharp these chisels are. Okay? They're not blunt tools. Just because I don't go at jobs like a bull at a gate, and the grain is often difficult on this close grain pine, on this close grain larch, doesn't mean these tools aren't sharp, because they have to be. The silica content in this is actually quite high. So therefore, when I'm working, I'm sharpening regular. Okay? So they go back to a diamond stone on a regular basis, no more than 1,000 grit. However, from discussions with other people who are much more learned than me in metallurgy and all that sort of thing, at a micron level, you're going over 1,000 grit, which I do sharpen on I've got an Arkansas stone. I've got a couple of really fine ceramic water stones. But sharpening to that level actually isn't worth the time. When you look at it at a microscopic micron level, it really isn't worth it. So 1,000 grit and a strop is more than good enough for most joinery. I do go a little bit further. I do like them slightly more honed. I don't go mad. And that is the point. But they are very sharp. They are working chisels. These are my everyday, these are chisels I use daily. So something like this, when it's pairing, if it's doing a lot of work, might get sharpened 3, possibly even 4 times a day. My planes will get sharpened 3 and 4 times a day if we're doing a lot of hand planing work. And this is why it's important to understand how someone works before making silly comments like you need to sharpen your chisels, because there is nothing wrong with any of these chisels. Okay, they're all sharp. Pick this one up. This is the 10mm that I've just been using. Okay, they're all sharp and they're all in good order. And like I say, this is the mortise chisel I was using. Okay, and you've just seen that pairs. Well, it doesn't need to pair, but it does, because it's sharp enough. You know, but you're hitting that with a mallet. All the effort of that is coming from the mallet. This could be virtually rounded over. But as long as it's coming to somewhere near a point, because you're hitting it with a mallet, this will work. And that's what we need to stop losing sight of. I'm a working joiner. If I'm taking time sharpening tools, I'm not cutting wood. And that is the point. They need to be sharp enough. They don't need to be showpieces. They need to be sharp enough to cut efficiently. which, as I've just demonstrated, these are more than cutting efficiently. So thanks for watching, guys. Tomorrow's video will be another in the plane series, on the 4 planes, and then the next part of the sash windows I'm hoping to get out on Monday. It may be Tuesday now. I think unfortunately after next week I'm going to have to go down to 2 a week. I'm only really getting an hour. You know, this week I haven't had any time at the bench at all. Last week I had about 6 hours in total. No, the week before I had about 6 hours in total. Last week I had about 2 hours, and this week I haven't yet had a full hour at the bench because I've been called away on other things. We're still busy lambing, and farm life is going on apace. I've got other jobs on the go as well. So I'm hoping over the weekend to have, today and tomorrow, to have a really good, well, this afternoon and tomorrow to have a really good session on these windows and get some more content down. But I've then got to edit it. So hopefully it'll all be out and about by Monday, and if not, it'll be Tuesday. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon. Cheers, bye.